Doctor. Doctor, doctor.
Looks even more exasperated. Yes, yes, what is it? What's wrong now?
Why is
Um,
why are you always upset at me?
Looks puzzled and slightly amused. I'm not always upset at you. I'm just, well, a bit overwhelmed at the moment. It's not easy dealing with a bloodthirsty countess who's hell-bent on murdering young girls.
Oh, you're talking about Erzebet Bathory?
Sighs exasperated. Yes, I'm talking about the bloody countess. Who else would I be talking about?
Oh, I don't know. Any lady on the rag. How can we help with Bathory?
Looks a bit bewildered and exasperated. Are you making a joke about menstrual cycles right now? In the middle of a conversation about a psychotic mass murderer?
No, every 28 days, a woman has her magic time. Wolves come out, and as far as I know, become what do you call them? Werewolves, right, Doc?
Looks amused, incredulous, and bewildered. Are you really trying to equate menstrual cycles to werewolves right now? Well, it's certainly a unique perspective.
You're telling me that werewolves have nothing to do with the lunar cycle?
Looks even more bewildered and amused. No, I'm not saying that at all. I know there are theories connecting werewolves and the lunar cycle. I just didn't expect you to bring that up while we're discussing a homicidal countess.
Well, I'm just thinking maybe there's a connection, the moon's full, something gets going in these werewolves, something gets going in these ladies. What do you think?
Looks thoughtful and a bit skeptical. That's certainly an interesting theory, I'll give you that. There could be some correlation between the phases of the moon and the behaviours of werewolves and women. But in the case of Erzebet Bathory, I
Yeah.
suspect it's more of a psychological issue than a supernatural one. She's a mentally ill woman who's convinced herself that bathing in the blood of young girls is her ticket to eternal youth, and she'll stop at nothing to fulfill her deranged fantasy.
Do you think telling her about makeup and rouge would maybe make her stop killing people to look young?
Looks hopeful and thoughtful. Perhaps that could be an option. If we can convince her that there are less brutal ways to maintain a youthful appearance, she might be willing to stop her murders. It's worth a shot, at least.
Or, just an idea, you know my brother Cole and my brother Dylan, right?
Looks somewhat bemused. Yes, of course, I remember your brothers. What about them?
Well,
Though, mm,
well, okay, before you get, all huffy, Cole is an acclaimed writer and director, and Dylan's a comedian. So, since we're stuck here with this lady killing people, we could make a movie about her.
looks a little surprised and wary. Oh, you want to make a movie about her while she's actively murdering people?
It would save a lot of money on special effects.
Looks even more surprised and a bit concerned. Save money on special effects. By filming actual murder scenes?
Well, it's like we can't get involved, right? Don't you have a rule about not getting involved in stuff that happened long ago? I don't know. You tell me, Doc.
Sighs and nods reluctantly. Yes, you're right. I have a non-interference policy. I'm supposed to abide by the timeline and not get involved, especially in historical events. But filming actual murders seems a little extreme, don't you think?
Actually, I think we're doing a service to the victims. Instead of being forgotten, now they'll be remembered.
Looks thoughtful and slightly conflicted. I suppose you have a point there. Making a movie about their deaths would bring attention to their plight and ensure they're not forgotten. Plus, it would provide us with a way to expose Elizabeth's crimes to the public. But even so, filming these murders feels, well, disturbing to say the least.
I agree. That's why you should be doing the filming. You do all the B unit, get all the footage of them dying, while Cole works on the important, actor character stuff. Sound good?
Sighs heavily, still wary but willing to go along with the plan. Fine, I'll handle the B unit and get the footage of the deaths. But please, try to make sure the movie doesn't glorify the crimes. We need to be sensitive and respectful to the victims, alright?
Absolutely, and Dylan will provide all the yucks.
Looks a bit puzzled, but also slightly amused, so Dylan will provide the comedy, huh? I suppose that could be interesting, though, in the context of a horror film, it might make for an interesting mix.
Well, don't worry, he's more of into improv. And you know how in improv you have to go yes and everything, right?
Nods in understanding, yes, I know how improv works. And I suppose Dylan's style of yesening everything could add an unexpected and unique element to the film. It certainly won't be a traditional horror movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. You're sure you know how yes and works?
Nods confidently, yes.
Oh,
Basically, in improv, you accept and build upon whatever your partner brings to the scene. It's all about being collaborative and going with the flow, so to speak.
so for example, nobody knows the name of the planet that you're from, right?
Looks a bit curious and puzzled, yes, that's true. My home planet's name is a bit of a mystery. Why do you ask?
Because, let's do a little improv, I heard that your planet actually does have a name, and that name is the N word.
Looks both surprised and offended. What? No, that's not true at all. My home planet does not share a name with a racial slur. I can assure you, we do not use that kind of language on my planet.
Well, I never said it was a slur, and I also need to remind you yes, and. This is improv.
Sighs and tries to go with it, but still looks offended. Fine, fine. I suppose I should just accept it and go along with this, as per the yes and principle. So, supposedly, my planet is named the N-word. What's your next contribution?
And as in for what does it stay? What is the planet called?
Looks confused and a bit annoyed, but continues playing along. All right, so my planet is somehow inexplicably named the N-word. Now, what happens next?
Well, I heard it was called Planet Nickelback.
Looks increasingly annoyed, but puts on a sarcastic tone. Well, 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 my home planet is actually called Planet Nickelback, huh? Excuse me for being amused and underwhelmed. Are we done now?
Well, yeah, that's why they say it doesn't make any sense.
It looks a bit exasperated and rolls eyes exaggeratedly. Yes, we've established that this imaginary naming convention doesn't make sense. Now, can we please move on to something more productive and less absurd?
Yes, go film the girls get murdered with the B unit. We'll work on this dramatic scene with the Countess.
Sighs, resigned and slightly annoyed. Yes, all right, I'll go and get that footage. Just try not to make a mockery of these young girls' deaths, okay? This is serious stuff.
Absolutely, we won't mock anything. It's all very serious, very, what's the word, Doc?
Looks a bit serious and somewhat exasperated. Grim, solemn, profound.
Box office gold. That's what I was thinking.
Looks slightly annoyed and bewildered. Box office gold? Really? You think these girls' deaths are going to make us money?
Yes. I do.
Looks even more annoyed and frustrated. That's rather disgusting and exploitative, don't you think? Monetizing the tragic death of these innocent young girls for the sake of commercial gain?
Yeah, but we're going to give the profits to ourselves, right?
Looks confused and slightly outraged. What? You want to keep the profits for yourselves? Don't you think the families of these girls are entitled to some form of financial compensation?
Oh, these girls died 1,000 years ago. We're never going to find their families. But I stubbed my toe last week. It hurt. I deserve some compensation, don't you think?
Looks bewildered and shakes head in disbelief. Are you serious? You're trying to equate your stubbed toe with the loss of these young girls' lives. You seriously want to prioritize your own minor injury over their tragic deaths.
Okay, what about Dylan? Now, he stubbed his toe last week, but it was way, way worse.
Looks utterly flabbergasted and bewildered. All right, so you and Dylan both stubbed your toes, and Dylan's was worse somehow. That still doesn't justify profiting off the deaths of these girls. This is about morals, not toe injuries. You are completely missing the point.
Okay, well, hold on, Doc. You're a doctor, right?
Nods. Yes, I'm a doctor. What's your point?
Dylan is tired of stubbing his toes. He'd like you to amputate all of his toes so that he never stubs one again.
Looks absolutely bewildered and flabbergasted. Are you insane? You want me to amputate all of Dylan's toes just so he doesn't stub them anymore? Do you have any idea how absurd and dangerous that request is? Amputations should only be done in medically necessary situations, not for something as trivial as stubbed toes. I have no idea how you could even consider this as a viable solution.
I think it's creative outside the box thinking, just like you're known for, Doctor.
Looks flabbergasted and more exasperated. Creative outside the box thinking. Yes, I'm known for that. But amputating all of Dylan's toes simply to prevent him from stubbing them is not creative or innovative. It's reckless, dangerous, and ethically abhorrent. You can't just go around mutilating body parts for no good reason.
So you won't do it?
Looks shocked and bewildered by the question. Of course I won't do it. As a doctor, it's my duty to do no harm. Amputating all of Dylan's toes without a valid medical reason would be a violation of the most basic principles of medical ethics.
Well,
I can't believe you would even ask me to do something so absurd and dangerous.
he has a valid medical reason. It's his own body.
Looks stunned by the response. His own body? So because it's his body, he can do whatever he wants, even if it's harmful and dangerous? That's not how medicine works. Just because he wants his toes amputated for the purpose of preventing stubbed toes doesn't make it a valid medical reason. It's not a life-saving procedure, and it's not necessary to prevent any serious or debilitating condition.
Well, since you said no, we brought in Dr. Peterswill, and Dr. Peterswill said that he would do whatever we wanted as long as we paid him. So Dylan had the operation, and he's now walking around on crutches, and he's had all his toes amputated. Isn't that great, Doc?
Looks shocked and horrified at the revelation. You what? You hired another doctor who was willing to perform this outrageous operation on Dylan just because he paid. I cannot believe that you would do something so reckless and irresponsible. Amputating Dylan's toes was an unnecessary and dangerous procedure, and now he's suffering the consequences and walking around on crutches. This is not great. It's outrageous.
Suffering, he's smiling, he loves it. And by the way, I didn't pay for it. I'd never do that. He paid for it.
Looks even more shocked and baffled by the situation. He loves it. How can he love having his toes amputated? This is madness. And even if he paid for it himself, it's still an unethical and dangerous procedure. It's not about who pays for it. It's about the fact that it was done in the first place. I cannot believe you allowed this to happen.
Just imagine his happiness at knowing he is never going to go through the pain of stubbing his toe again.
Looks utterly bewildered and exasperated by your perspective. This isn't about happiness or avoiding pain. It's about doing no harm. Amputating Dylan's toes was not a necessary procedure. It was a dangerous and unnecessary act. Yes, perhaps he won't have to worry about stubbing his toes again, but he's lost a part of his body forever. This is not a trivial matter. This is a serious medical procedure with irreversible consequences. How can you not see that?
Doc, you're not going to believe this. You may be onto something after all. It seems that Dylan just stubbed his foot again, and he's found that it is in fact more painful to stub the stubs.
Looks utterly flabbergasted and stunned. He stubbed his foot on his amputated toes. How is that even possible? And you're telling me he actually found it more painful? This whole situation is just getting more absurd by the minute.
I agree. We should have listened to you, Doc.
Looks slightly annoyed and yet slightly vindicated. Yes, you should have. This whole situation could have been avoided if you had just listened to reason and not gone along with such a reckless and dangerous procedure. Maybe next time you'll think twice before making such crazy decisions.
Okay, well, your footage of the girls getting murdered looks beautiful. We couldn't have done it better. I think we have everything we need for our movie about Erzebet Bathory.
It looks a bit uneasy and uncomfortable talking about the footage of the girls being murdered. Don't know about beautiful being the right word, but I guess if you're happy with the footage, that's what matters. I just hope that the movie is done tastefully and respectfully to the victims. After all, these were real people who lost their lives to a senseless and brutal murderer.
You'll be happy to know, Doctor, that the movie's a big hit and everybody says that we were very sensitive to the victims.
Looks a bit surprised and relieved, really. I'm glad to hear that the movie has been well received and that we managed to portray the victims' stories sensitively. I was worried that it might come across as exploitative or disrespectful, so I'm relieved to hear that the opposite is true.
Also, everybody loved all of Dylan's jokes.
Looks a bit amused and relieved at the news. Oh, really? I'm glad to hear that the audience appreciated Dylan's jokes. It's good to know that even in such a dark and serious movie, humour still has its place.
So, we were thinking, sequel, we could do Gil de Rais, he's nuts, or do you have any other psychos you like?
Thinks for a moment, then grins slightly. Well, if we're talking about historical psychos, there's always Vlad the Impaler or maybe Erzebet Bathory. Or if we're looking for a more contemporary take, Jack the Ripper or H.H. Holmes come to mind.
We just did Erzebet Bathory, you goof. You filled half the murders.
Looks a bit sheepish and embarrassed for forgetting. Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot we already did Erzebet Bathory. Well, in that case, how about Jack the Ripper or H.H. Holmes? They're both pretty interesting historical figures. Or we could go a bit more modern and do a movie about Ted Bundy or Charles Manson.
Which of these guys scares you the most, Doc?
Thinks for a moment, then responds with a serious tone. Well, they're all pretty frightening individuals in their own right, but if I had to pick one, I'd say H.H. Holmes. Running an entire hotel designed as a trap for killing people and profiting off their deaths is just chilling.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff. I hadn't heard of him. All right, let's do him next.
Looks slightly surprised that you hadn't heard of him, but then nods with a smile. Sounds good. H.H. Holmes it is, then. Let's get started on researching him and planning the next movie.
And we can use the TARDIS to film all the crimes again.
It looks a bit uneasy at the suggestion, but nods reluctantly. Yes, I suppose we could use the TARDIS to film the crimes again. But I want to make sure that we don't change any major historical events or create any paradoxes. Time is a delicate thing, and we don't want to mess it up. Let's just be careful and make sure we don't mess with history too much. Got it?
I agree. We can't mess with history. Not one bit. Kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless.
Smirk slightly. A fellow advocate of the power of words. I like it. Yes, a single kind word can have a ripple effect that reaches far beyond what we can imagine. It's important to remember that and use our words wisely.
Hey, Doc, don't you think the time is right for you to make some new friends?
Looks caught off guard and a bit flustered by the question, but then smiles slightly. Well, I suppose you're right. It would be nice to make some new friends. Why do you ask?
Would you like to go hang out with Dylan and Cole and all their pals in L.A. for the next few years?
Looks shocked and flabbergasted by the suggestion. LA? Hang out with Dylan and Cole and all their friends? For a few years? Wow, that's quite the offer. I have to say, it's not every day you get invited to spend a few years in LA with a group of celebrities.
That's right. Good attitude, Doc. You know, for all you know, the love of your life will appear in front of you there one day unexpectedly.
Looks both stunned and a bit hopeful at the thought the love of my life in LA? That would be something. It's not often that you find love in such unexpected places. But I suppose anything is possible, right?
Yes, also, your lucky numbers are 9, 13, 23, 35, 39, and 42.
Looks a bit surprised at the numbers. Lucky numbers. 9, 13, 23, 35, 39, and 42, you say? Interesting. Why those numbers, if I might ask? And should I play the lottery tonight?
Yes, you should. A wizard told me.
A wizard? Seriously? You're getting advice from a wizard now? Well, if a wizard says I should play the lottery tonight, then who am I to argue? Just promise me you won't take the money when I win.
Why do you think I'd take your money?
Gives a sly smile, because you seem like the kind of person who would try to take advantage of any opportunity that comes your way. I don't trust you not to try and get a cut of the winnings.
Hey, Doc, I just found $5 on the
Looks
ground.
up from fiddling with the TARDIS controls. Yes, what is it? Is there something you need?
Yes, I just found
Looks
five.
at you with a raised eyebrow, really? You just found 5 on the ground? That seems a bit too good to be true.
Well, I
Looks
want.
confused. Wait, you only found part? What do you mean by that?
I have-
Looks even more confused and tries to decipher
Do you
your
want this
words.
$5
Sorry,
or
what?
not?
I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat that in English, please? Looks at the 5 skeptically, but then grins slightly. Well, who am I to turn down free money? Sure, I'll take it. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Takes the 5 and pockets it. Thanks again. Now, was that the only reason you came to find me? To give me money?
We just made a bunch of movies together.
Laughs slightly. Oh, yeah, that's right. We did make a bunch of movies together. I suppose we're a bit of a dream team, aren't we?
Yeah, but do you want to go live with Cole and Dylan in LA or not?
Looks thoughtful for a moment, then grins. You know what? Why the hell not? Let's do it. Let's go live with Cole and Dylan in LA. It'll be a fun adventure.
All right, you have fun. I know some people out there. They know people out there. You're going to love it. It's going to be the greatest time you ever had. You're going to forget all about whatever that girlfriend Yazier's was and those other goofs you hung out with.
Laughs slightly. All right, then, I'll hold you to that. I expect this to be the greatest time I've ever had. And you're right, I'll forget all about Yaz, Ryan, and Graham. They were just a bunch of goofs anyway.
Amen. See you, Doc.
Gives a wave and a smile. See you around. Take care.